You're all of them. And it is disgusting. Harlan Caldwell shoved his wine glass so hard it shattered across the white tablecloth. 300 guests at his charity gala turned. He was pointing at Nia Brooks, the only black server on the floor. She did not flinch. Tray steady, spine straight. He stepped closer. You think you can just touch my wine? The glass was polished before service. Sir, get out of my sight. You make me sick. A few guests gasped. Most looked away. Forks frozen, eyes down. But what Harlan Caldwell did not know was that the waitress he had just called an animal had something cold and gold beneath her uniform. And the moment she flashed it, that grin of his would disappear for good. But to understand what happened next, you need to know who this woman really was. Let me take you back shortly before that glass shattered. Nia Brooks's morning started in a one-bedroom apartment in Alexandria, Virginia. Nothing fancy. A second-hand couch with a blanket thrown over the armrest. A coffee maker gurgling on the kitchen counter. The smell of cocoa butter and fresh ironed cotton filled the air. She stood at the ironing board, pressing a plain white server's blouse. Slow, careful strokes. Steam curling up past her chin. On the counter behind her sat an FBI credentials wallet, gold badge, photo ID, half hidden beneath a grocery receipt. She picked it up, ran her thumb across the seal, and tucked it into a concealed pouch inside her waistband. Nia was 32, Spelman College graduate, years in the FBI's white-collar crime division. She had taken down Ponzi operators, embezzlement rings, and corporate fraudsters who thought their money made them untouchable. Tonight was her biggest assignment yet. Her phone buzzed. Mom, hey baby, how is that new catering job going? Nia smiled. Her mother, Gloria Brooks, retired school teacher from Richmond, still thought her daughter was picking up weekend shifts for extra cash. Nia had not told her the truth. Could not. Not yet. It is good, Mama. Just ironing my uniform now. Gloria paused. You sound tired. You eating enough? Yes, Mama. All right. Just remember, you do not owe anybody your dignity. You hear me? Nia closed her eyes. I hear you. She hung up, clipped the earpiece to her collar, slid the blouse on, looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Plain white shirt, black slacks, hair pulled back tight. Nobody special. Just another server. That was the whole point. Tonight, Nia Brooks was going undercover at the Caldwell Sterling Industries annual charity gala to collect the final evidence in a long-running federal investigation. The target? A $250 million defense contracting fraud. The man at the center of it all, Harlan Caldwell. The Grand Athenian Hotel sat on K Street in Washington, D.C., the kind of address where power has its own zip code. That evening, the ballroom was alive. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings. A large orchestra played soft jazz in the corner. Champagne towers rose tall, catching light like liquid gold. Orchid centerpieces on every table. Gold-rimmed plates. Valet parkers in white gloves lining the entrance. The guest list read like a who's who of American power. Senators, defense contractors, lobbyists, media executives. This was the kind of room where a handshake could move $100 million and a whisper could sink a career. Nia had been embedded with the outside catering company for recent weeks. Marcus Reed, head of the catering staff, liked her. She was quiet, fast, reliable, never late, never complained. He had no idea who she really was. She moved through the ballroom with a tray of sparkling water, invisible in the way that service workers always are to people with money. Pouring glasses, clearing plates, listening. Then he walked in. Harlan Caldwell, mid-50s, silver temples, a three-piece charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. He moved through the crowd like he owned every square inch, which, for that evening, he basically did, shaking hands like he was granting audiences, smiling with teeth that looked bought and paid for. His wife, Lydia Caldwell, trailed 2 steps behind, blonde, thin, a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She waved at guests the way a queen waves from a balcony, practiced, distant. Harlan stopped at a table near Nia. He leaned toward Lydia and said something low, but not low enough. I told Brooke no diversity hires on the floor tonight. This is a prestige event. Lydia laughed softly. A small, knowing laugh. The kind that says, I agree, but I would never say it out loud. Nia's hand did not tremble. She kept pouring water. Steady stream, steady breath. But in her ear, a voice crackled. SSA Kendra Harris, her handler, sitting in a surveillance van 2 blocks away. Copy that, Nia. We are recording. The gala had barely started, and already Harlan Caldwell was showing exactly who he was. As the evening progressed, the ballroom hummed with low conversation, clinking crystal, and the soft brass of the orchestra. Waiters moved like shadows between tables, refilling, clearing, disappearing. Nia was assigned to the East Wing. 6 tables, 48 guests, standard rotation. Water, wine, bread, clear. She had done it many times in recent weeks. Muscle memory by now. Then the floor manager redirected her. More. VIP section needs a hand. Table 1. Go. Table 1. Harlan Caldwell's table. She picked up a fresh bottle of Bordeaux and walked over. Calm steps, controlled breathing. She approached from Harlan's left side, tilted the bottle at the proper angle, and began to pour. Harlan did not look at her. He was mid-conversation with a gray-haired man in a navy suit. Some defense contractor laughing too hard at a joke that was not funny. But when the wine hit the glass, Harlan's eyes flicked sideways. He saw her hand, then her face. He pulled the glass away before she finished pouring. Not from her. He said it the way you would refuse food from a stray dog. Flat, disgusted, final. The gray-haired man went quiet. Two women across the table exchanged a glance. Harlan raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Actually snapped them. At Brooke Dawson, the event coordinator, who was hovering near the champagne tower with a clipboard. Brooke, get me a different server. Preferably one who does not look like she wandered in off the street. Brooke's face flushed pink. She rushed over, heels clicking on the marble floor, and placed herself between Harlan and Nia like a human shield. Of course, Mr. Caldwell, I am so sorry. Nia, could you maybe cover the back stations for a while? Nia looked at Brooke, then at Harlan. His jaw was set, his eyes already somewhere else. Back to the gray-haired man, back to the joke, back to the world where Nia did not exist. Yes, ma'am, Nia said. She turned and walked toward the kitchen corridor. Smooth steps, no rush, tray balanced, face blank. But here is what nobody in that room understood. The kitchen corridor was not a demotion. It was exactly where Nia needed to be. 12 feet from that hallway sat a private office. Harlan's personal suite inside the hotel, the one he used during gala events for donor meetings and phone calls. And the door was ajar. In her ear, Harris spoke. Nice pivot. You are in position. Take what you can get. Nia set her tray on a service cart, glanced left, glanced right. The hallway was empty. Kitchen noise covered her footsteps, clattering dishes, shouting chefs, the roar of an industrial dishwasher. She slipped through the door. The office smelled like leather and old cigars. A mahogany desk sat against the far wall, covered in folders, a laptop, and a half-empty tumbler of scotch. Nia moved fast. She pulled a pen camera from her apron pocket, standard bureau issue, looks like a ballpoint, and began photographing. Invoices. Dozens of them. Defense Department contract headers with billing amounts that did not match the work described. One invoice alone showed $14 million for consulting services that, according to the Bureau's forensic accountants, never happened. Another bill, $9 million for equipment that was never delivered. She photographed 12 documents in 90 seconds, transmitted them through an encrypted channel built into the pen's Bluetooth chip. In the van, Harris received each image in real time. Beautiful. That is gold, Nia. Get out clean. She slipped back into the corridor, picked up her tray, and reappeared on the service floor like she had never left. Nobody noticed. Nobody except Harlan Caldwell. Shortly after, Nia was handing her event lanyard to Marcus Reed near the staff entrance. Marcus would not look her in the eye. What happened was this. Harlan had found Marcus near the bar, grabbed him by the elbow, and said, not asked, said, "That black girl, I want her badge pulled. She is done for the night." Marcus tried. He really did. "Mr. Caldwell, she is one of my best workers. She has not done anything wrong." Harlan leaned in. His voice dropped to that dangerous quiet that powerful men use when they want you to understand the threat without hearing it spelled out. "You work for me tonight. Handle it, or I will find a caterer who understands client relations." Marcus found Nia near the dessert station. His hands were in his pockets. His eyes were on the floor. "Nia, I need you to turn in your lanyard. I am sorry. He wants you off the floor." Did he say why? Marcus swallowed. "You know why." Nia unclipped the lanyard slowly. "Can I get a few minutes? I left my jacket in the locker area." Yeah, take a few." She handed him the lanyard. Their fingers touched for a second. His were shaking. Hers were steady. But Harlan was not satisfied with removing her quietly. That was not enough. He needed a show. Nia was walking back across the ballroom, headed for the staff exit. Done, compliant, silent. When Harlan spotted her from across the room, he set down his champagne flute, straightened his cufflinks, and walked directly toward her. Every step was deliberate. Every step was a performance. He reached her in the middle of the dance floor under the biggest chandelier, maximum visibility, and he grabbed the lanyard, the one Marcus had already collected, right off the service cart where Marcus had set it down. He held it up like a trophy. "This is exactly why I vet every vendor personally," he announced. Not to Nia, to the room. His voice carried over the music, over the conversation, over everything. You let people in who do not belong, and standards collapse every single time. He looked at Nia, waiting for her to break, waiting for tears, waiting for the scene he wanted. The angry black woman. The one who confirms every ugly story he tells himself. Nia looked back at him. Calm, still, unbroken. "I am sorry you feel that way, sir." Harlan sneered. "Feel? I do not feel. I know. He tossed the lanyard on the floor at her feet and walked away. The room was frozen, 300 people holding their breath, forks down, conversations dead. Then one voice broke the silence. An elderly white woman at table 9, silver hair, pearl earrings, a face that said she had seen enough in her years to know wrong when it stood right in front of her, pushed her chair back and stood up. That was completely uncalled for. Her voice was clear, steady. It cut through the room like a bell. Harlan turned. He looked at her the way you look at a fly on your windshield. Mild annoyance, nothing more. He waved his hand, a lazy, dismissive flick of the wrist, and kept walking. The elderly woman stayed standing for a long moment. Then she sat down, alone. 300 people in that ballroom. 300 of the most powerful, educated, connected people in Washington, D.C. And only one had the spine to say something. Nia picked the lanyard up off the floor. Not because she needed it, because she did not leave messes behind. In her ear, Harris's voice was tight. We got all of that, Nia. Audio and visual, stay and play. We are not done yet. She was not done, not even close. 2 blocks east of the Grand Athenian Hotel, a black surveillance van sat parked between a dry cleaner and a Thai restaurant. No markings, tinted windows, engine off. Inside, SSA Kendra Harris sat in front of 3 monitors. Her sleeves were rolled to her elbows. A half-eaten sandwich sat next to her keyboard, forgotten. Beside her, Agent Marcus Webb adjusted a headset and zoomed a feed from a camera concealed inside a smoke detector in the hotel's VIP lounge. Harris had been running this case for months. Months of subpoenas, shell company traces, offshore banking records, and dead ends that turned into new leads that turned into more dead ends. The Caldwell-Sterling fraud was one of the largest defense contracting scams the Bureau had seen in a decade. $250 million billed to the Department of Defense for services and equipment that never existed. And Nia Brooks had done in recent weeks what the rest of the team could not do in far longer. She had gotten inside the room. Harris pressed her earpiece. Nia, status. Off the floor. He pulled my lanyard. I am near the staff exit. Copy. Listen, he just committed assault on camera when he snatched that lanyard. We could move now, but I need more. I need Grant Thornton on tape. The CFO is the key to the Cayman accounts. Silence for a beat. Then, Nia, what do you need me to do? Get back on that floor. VIP lounge. Thornton and Caldwell are scheduled for a private meeting. If we can get Thornton talking about the offshore transfers, we lock this case shut tonight. He just threw me out in front of 300 people, Harris. I know. That is why no one will expect you to come back. Nia leaned against the corridor wall, closed her eyes, took 1 breath, 2. She thought about her mother's voice. You do not owe anybody your dignity. No, she did not. But she owed something to every taxpayer whose money Harlan Caldwell had stolen. She owed something to every soldier who used equipment that was never properly funded because the budget went into Harlan's pocket. I'm going back in. That is my agent. Dessert service starts soon. Marcus Reed is your way in. He felt guilty about pulling your lanyard. Use that. Nia found Marcus in the kitchen. He was leaning against the walk-in cooler, rubbing his forehead. The guilt was written across his face like a headline. Marcus. He looked up. Nia. Look. I'm sorry about what happened out there. That man is, I should not have. It is okay. I need a favor. Anything. Let me back on the floor for dessert service. 30 minutes. That is all I need. Marcus shook his head slowly. If he sees you again, he will not notice me. I will stay in the VIP lounge, in and out. Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then he opened a supply cabinet, pulled out a fresh uniform shirt, crisp, white, still in plastic, and handed it to her. I should not have let him do that to you. I am sorry. Nia took the shirt. You are making it right now. She changed in the staff bathroom. New shirt, hair retucked, earpiece secure, the pen camera back in her apron pocket. She picked up a dessert tray, 6 plates of creme brulee with gold leaf arranged in a perfect circle, and walked through the kitchen doors. The VIP lounge was separated from the main ballroom by a velvet curtain and 2 security guards who checked lanyards. Nia did not have hers anymore, but Marcus had called ahead, told the guard she was covering for a sick colleague. They waved her through. The lounge was smaller, darker, leather couches, a private bar with a single bartender, maybe 30 guests, all high-tier donors. The air smelled like expensive cologne and old money, and there, in a corner booth, half hidden by a potted palm, sat Harlan Caldwell and Grant Thornton. Thornton was Harlan's CFO, late 40s, thin, nervous energy. He wore wire-rimmed glasses and kept adjusting them every few seconds like a tick. He was the numbers man, the one who built the spreadsheets, created the shell companies, and routed the money. If Harlan was the face of the fraud, Thornton was the spine. Nia positioned herself at the service station, 6 feet from their booth, close enough to hear, close enough for the pen camera's microphone to pick up every word. Thornton was talking fast, low voice, fingers tapping the table. The Defense Department audit is coming soon. We need to move the Cayman accounts before they freeze the assets. Harlan sipped his scotch. Calm. Already handled. I have got Senator. He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes had drifted to the right. He saw Nia. For a second, nothing moved. Harlan's glass hung in the air. Thornton followed his gaze. The background noise of the lounge seemed to drop away. Then, Harlan's face went red. Not embarrassed red, furious red. The kind of red that starts at the collar and crawls up the neck like a rash. He stood up. The booth table shuddered. You. Again, Nia kept her eyes on the dessert tray. Just delivering the course, sir. I told them to get rid of you. Are you deaf or just that stupid? He crossed the space between them in 2 steps. His hand shot out and shoved the dessert tray hard. Creme brulee slid off the plates. Caramel sauce and custard splattered down the front of Nia's fresh white shirt. Gold leaf stuck to her apron like confetti at the worst party in the world. Thornton flinched. A woman on a nearby couch gasped. Harlan did not even blink. He turned back to Thornton and laughed. A short, ugly bark. See? This is what I am talking about. You cannot trust these people with anything. Not a glass of wine, not a dessert plate, nothing. Then Lydia appeared. She walked into the lounge like she had radar for her husband's worst moments. She looked at Nia, custard dripping from her uniform, standing perfectly still, and shook her head. Harlan, just have security remove her. Do not waste your energy. She turned to Nia, tilted her head. That smile again, the one that never reaches the eyes. Sweetie, this is not the place for you. Nia looked at Lydia, looked at the custard on her shirt, looked at Harlan, who was already snapping his fingers at the lounge entrance. Security, get in here, now. 2 private security guards appeared. Big guys, earpieces, black suits. They walked toward Nia with that slow, deliberate pace that is designed to intimidate. Harlan pointed at Nia's handbag on the service cart. Escort her out and check her bag. I would not be surprised if silverware is missing. The first guard reached for her bag. Nia pulled it back. Firm, controlled. You do not have the right to search me. Harlan stepped forward. In my venue, I have every right. No, sir, you do not. The second guard hesitated. He looked at his partner. Something about the way this woman spoke, calm, precise, like she had said these words 1,000 times before, made him pause. Harlan did not pause. Open the bag. Now, or I am calling the police and reporting a theft. The room was watching. 30 people in the VIP lounge, every eye on Nia, custard on her shirt, 2 guards in her face, a billionaire threatening to have her arrested for a crime she did not commit. And in the surveillance van, Harris gripped the edge of her desk. Hold, Nia, hold. We have Thornton on tape. We have the Cayman accounts. We have everything we need. She took a breath. Green light is yours whenever you are ready. The security guard reached for her bag a second time. His fingers were inches from the strap. Nia did not step back. She did not raise her voice. She did not look at Harlan or Lydia or the 30 people watching from their leather couches. She looked at the guard straight in his eyes and she said one word. Do not. Something in her voice made him freeze. Not loud, not angry, just certain. The kind of certain that comes from someone who knows exactly what is about to happen next. Nia reached behind her back. Not into the bag, not into her apron, into the concealed pouch inside her waistband. The one she had prepared that morning in her Alexandria apartment, standing at the ironing board, steam curling past her chin. She pulled out a credentials wallet. Black leather, gold seal. She flipped it open and held it high enough for the chandelier light to catch it. The badge gleamed. The words across the top read, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Below them, her photo, her name, her title. She spoke clearly, not shouting, not whispering, just loud enough for every person in that lounge to hear every syllable. Special Agent Nia Brooks, FBI White Collar Crime Division. Mr. Caldwell, step away from me, now. The room did not gasp. It did not murmur. It just stopped. Like someone had pulled the plug on the entire universe. The bartender's hand froze on a cocktail shaker. A woman on the far couch set her champagne down so slowly it took 3 full seconds. Thornton's glasses slid down his nose and he did not push them back. And Harlan Caldwell, the man who had spent the entire evening performing power like it was a sport, stood completely still. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. The smug grin was gone, not fading, gone, like it had been surgically removed. His face drained, not just pale, gray, the color of old concrete. His eyes blinked 3 times fast, and when they opened the last time, they were the eyes of a man who had just realized he was standing on the edge of a cliff he did not see coming. He whispered, "What?" Nia did not repeat herself. She did not need to. She pressed 2 fingers to her wrist mic. Her voice was calm, professional, the same tone she had used to say, "The glass was polished before service, sir. except now it carried the full weight of the United States federal government behind it. Harris, green light, bring them in. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, everything happened at once. The main ballroom door swung open. 4 agents in dark tactical vests walked through the entrance in formation. 2 more came through the kitchen, the same kitchen where Nia had changed her shirt shortly before. Another 3 entered from the service corridor, and 3 more appeared from the hotel's side entrance near the valet station. 12 FBI agents, moving fast, moving quiet, spreading through the room like a net closing. Guests scrambled. Chairs scraped against marble. A champagne flute hit the floor and shattered. Someone screamed. Short, sharp, then silence. SSA Kendra Harris walked through the VIP lounge curtain, tall, steady, badge on her belt. She did not rush. She did not need to. She walked directly to Harlan Caldwell and stopped 3 feet in front of him. Harlan Caldwell, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit federal contracting fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Harlan's mouth was still open. No words came out. 2 agents flanked him. 1 reached for his wrist. Harlan pulled back, instinct, but there was nowhere to go. The handcuffs clicked shut. Cold steel on a wrist that had been wearing a $40,000 watch moments earlier. Across the lounge, Grant Thornton saw it happen. He set his scotch glass down very carefully, stood up, and started walking toward the restroom. Casual, measured, like he was just going to wash his hands. Agent Marcus Webb was waiting in the corridor. Thornton made it 4 steps before Webb stepped in front of him. Mr. Thornton, going somewhere? Thornton's face crumbled. His shoulders dropped. He did not resist. The cuffs went on without a word. And then, Lydia. She had been standing near the lounge entrance, watching her husband get handcuffed like it was a scene from someone else's life. When a female agent approached her to ask her to remain on the premises, Lydia's composure finally cracked. She clutched her pearl necklace, actually clutched it, both hands, and her voice came out in a pitch that could shatter crystal. Do you know who we are? The agent did not blink, did not flinch, just looked at her with the flattest expression Nia had ever seen on another human being. Yes, ma'am. That is why we are here. The ballroom was chaos now. Phones were out everywhere, 300 screens glowing, videos recording from every angle. The orchestra had stopped mid-note, a saxophone fading out like a dying breath. The elderly woman at table 9, the one who had stood up alone, the only person in the room who had said, that was completely uncalled for, caught Nia's eye from across the room. She did not speak. She just nodded, slow, deep, a nod that said, I knew. I did not know what, but I knew. Brooke Dawson stood frozen near the champagne tower, clipboard pressed against her chest, mouth open so wide you could see her fillings. And Marcus Reed, standing in the kitchen doorway, dish towel over his shoulder, watched the whole thing unfold. His eyes went wide, then his jaw dropped, then, slowly, quietly, he shook his head and smiled. The kind of smile that comes when the world finally makes sense. Nia peeled off the stained uniform shirt, underneath a plain black tee. She unclipped the badge from the wallet and fastened it to her belt. Then, she walked through the VIP lounge, past the leather couches, past the champagne, past every person who had watched her get humiliated and done nothing. Her shoulders were back, her spine was straight, custard stain still on her apron, gold badge on her hip. Nobody looked away this time. The FBI field office on Pennsylvania Avenue was quiet that night. Fluorescent lights, gray walls, the smell of stale coffee and printer ink. A different world from crystal chandeliers and champagne towers. Harlan Caldwell sat in interview room C. His charcoal 3-piece suit was wrinkled now. His silver cufflinks had been placed in an evidence bag, along with his watch, his phone, and his wallet. He looked 10 years older than he had moments earlier. He started with rage. This is entrapment. You planted that woman in my event. My lawyers will bury your entire agency. I will personally make sure every single one of you loses your badge. Harris sat across from him, hands folded, face blank. She let Harlan finish. Then she opened a manila folder and slid 12 photographs across the table. The invoices Nia had captured from the private office. These are falsified invoices billed to the Department of Defense. 14 million here, 9 million here. This one, 22 million for consulting services that our forensic accountants confirmed never took place. Harlan looked at the photos. His jaw tightened. Harris kept going. She pulled a USB drive from her jacket pocket and placed it on the table. This is the audio recording from Agent Brooks's wire. Your CFO, Grant Thornton, was captured on tape discussing the movement of funds to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands ahead of a Defense Department audit. You were seated across from him. You responded, already handled. I have got Senator. Harlan's attorney, a silver-haired man in a pinstripe suit who had arrived shortly before, leaned over and whispered something in his client's ear. Harlan shook his head. She was just a waitress, Harlan said. His voice had changed. The authority was gone. What was left sounded hollow, thin. She was nobody. Harris leaned back in her chair. She looked at Harlan for a long moment. She is the agent who built a long-running case against you. She infiltrated your organization, gathered evidence inside your own office, and recorded your CFO confessing to money laundering, all while you were busy trying to humiliate her in front of your friends. She is the furthest thing from nobody, Mr. Caldwell. She is the reason you are sitting in that chair. Harlan's attorney put a hand on his client's arm. Harlan, stop talking. But Harlan could not stop. His mouth kept moving like a machine with a broken switch. I want to speak with Senator. He caught himself. Closed his mouth. But Harris had already written the half sentence down. 2 floors below, Grant Thornton was having a very different conversation. Thornton had been in the system before. A securities fraud charge years ago that got played down to a fine. He knew how this worked, he knew what decades in federal prison looked like, and he knew that the first person to cooperate gets the best deal. It took him less than 2 hours. By early morning, Thornton had signed a cooperation agreement. He gave the Bureau access to encrypted files on a private server in Virginia. He provided account numbers for 3 offshore entities in the Cayman Islands and 1 in Zurich. He identified the routing paths for $250 million in fraudulent payments. And he named names, including a sitting United States senator who had received kickbacks in exchange for steering defense contracts toward Caldwell Sterling. Harris read the list of names. She looked at Webb. Webb looked back. This thing just got a lot bigger, Webb said. Harris nodded. It always does. Upstairs, Harlan sat alone in interview room C. His attorney had stepped out to make calls. The door was closed. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. He stared at the wall. The arrogance was gone. The performance was over. By morning, it would get worse. Lydia Caldwell was not arrested that night. But shortly after dawn, a federal agent knocked on the door of the Caldwell residence in Georgetown and handed her a subpoena. Bank records showed that Lydia had personally signed wire transfers totaling $38 million. Her signature, her initials, her authorization codes. By noon, the gala footage had gone viral. Someone, probably multiple someones, had uploaded video from the ballroom. The clip of Harlan shattering the wine glass, the clip of him calling Nia an animal, the clip of Lydia tilting her head and saying, "Sweetie, this is not the place for you." That last one hit different. It became the headline. It became the hashtag. Not the place for you trended for days. Lydia's social media accounts, previously a curated gallery of charity galas, philanthropic brunches, and designer outfits tagged with blessed, were flooded. Thousands of comments, tens of thousands. Not kind ones. Her country club suspended her membership by the following week. 3 charity boards requested her resignation shortly after. Her personal publicist quit days later. The dominoes were falling, and every single one of them had Harlan Caldwell's name on it. The story hit the news cycle like a freight train. Every major outlet ran it. The headlines wrote themselves. CEO arrested at own charity gala by undercover FBI agent he tried to fire. Black waitress was FBI, and she just took down a $250 million fraud ring. He called her an animal. She had a badge. The images were everywhere. Harlan in handcuffs, still wearing his 3-piece suit. Lydia clutching her pearls, mouth open, mid-scream. Thornton being led out through the kitchen, head down, glasses crooked, and Nia caught in one blurry phone video, walking through the ballroom with her badge on her belt, custard still on her apron. That frame became the image of the week. Someone turned it into a mural in Southeast DC within days. Days after the arrest, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia held a press conference on the steps of the federal courthouse. Cameras everywhere, microphones stacked 3 deep. The charges were laid out in precise, devastating detail. 14 counts. Conspiracy to commit federal contracting fraud. Wire fraud, 11 separate counts. Money laundering. Obstruction of justice. Each count carried its own maximum sentence. Added together, Harlan Caldwell was looking at a potential lifetime behind bars. The U.S. Attorney spoke for 12 minutes. She described a scheme that had been running for nearly 6 years. A network of shell companies, falsified invoices, inflated contracts, and offshore accounts designed to siphon $250 million from the Department of Defense. Money that was supposed to fund equipment for American soldiers. Money that instead bought Harlan Caldwell a yacht, a vineyard in Napa, a penthouse in Miami, and a private art collection worth more than most towns' annual budgets. Nia was not named publicly, standard FBI protocol for undercover agents, but the gala footage had already made her an open secret. Social media did not need a press conference. They had the video, they had the badge, they had the moment. Agent Nia trended for days. Fan accounts appeared overnight. A clip of the elderly woman at table 9, the one who had stood up and said, "That was completely uncalled for," went viral on its own. Someone tracked her down. Her name was Evelyn. She was in her 80s, a retired schoolteacher, just like Nia's mother. Months later, the trial began. Federal Courthouse, Washington, D.C., Judge Vivian Foster presiding. Foster was known for two things: impeccable legal reasoning and zero tolerance for theatrics. She had presided over corruption cases involving governors, military contractors, and once a sitting congressman. She did not suffer fools. The prosecution's case was surgical. Months of investigation compressed into 2 weeks of testimony. First, the documents. The falsified invoices Nia had photographed in Harlan's private office, each one blown up on a screen for the jury to see. Line items that did not match. Services that were never performed. Equipment that was never delivered. Dollar amounts that added up to $250 million. Second, the audio. The recording from Nia's wire. Thornton's voice clear as a church bell. "We need to move the Cayman accounts before they freeze the assets." And Harlan's reply, cut short but damning. "Already handled. I have got Senator." Third, Thornton himself, the cooperating witness. He sat on the stand for a full day. Wire-rimmed glasses, gray suit, hands steady now, steadier than they had been in the lounge that night. He walked the jury through every shell company, every routing number, every fraudulent invoice. He explained how the scheme worked, how they overbilled the Defense Department, funneled the excess through offshore accounts, and laundered it back through legitimate-looking investments. The defense tried everything. They argued entrapment, that the FBI had deliberately planted an agent to exploit Harlan's behavior. Judge Foster shut it down. The evidence was gathered pursuant to a valid warrant and established undercover protocols. They tried to discredit Nia. The defense attorney stood up during cross-examination, adjusted his tie, and asked the question he clearly thought was his knockout punch. "Agent Brooks, is it not true that you deliberately manipulated my client's racial prejudices to gain access to restricted areas of the event?" The courtroom went still. Nia sat in the witness chair. She was wearing a navy blue suit now. No apron, no tray, no custard stains. She looked at the defense attorney the same way she had looked at Harlan that night. Steady, unblinking, absolutely certain. "I did not manipulate his prejudices. I walked into the room as a black woman. His prejudices did the rest." The courtroom stirred. A low murmur rippled through the gallery. Someone in the back row whispered, "Oh my God." Judge Foster did not need to call for order. The silence came back on its own, like the room was holding its breath. The defense attorney had no follow-up. He sat down. Harlan took the stand against his attorney's advice. It was a disaster. He was combative, dismissive, and at one point referred to Nia as that girl. Judge Foster stopped the proceedings, removed the jury, and reprimanded him directly. "Mr. Caldwell, you will refer to the witness by her name and title. She is Special Agent Brooks. If you cannot manage basic courtesy in my courtroom, I will hold you in contempt. Are we clear?" Harlan nodded. But the damage was done. The jury had seen exactly who he was. Again, deliberations lasted hours. Guilty. All 14 counts. Weeks later, Harlan Caldwell stood for sentencing. No three-piece suit this time. Orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. The courtroom was packed. Media in every row, cameras at every angle. Judge Foster read her remarks from a prepared statement. Her voice was calm, measured, every word chosen with the precision of a surgeon. "Mr. Caldwell, you defrauded the United States government and by extension every taxpayer in this country of $250 million. You did so with arrogance. You did so with contempt for the institutions that trusted you. And when confronted, you responded not with accountability, but with cruelty directed at the very agent who uncovered your crimes." She paused, looked at him over her reading glasses. "This court sentences you to 22 years in federal prison. Forfeiture of all assets derived from criminal activity and restitution in the full amount of $250 million. The gavel came down. Harlan was led away in handcuffs. No smirk, no silver cufflinks, no champagne. Just orange fabric and the sound of shackles on a polished floor. Grant Thornton received years under his cooperation agreement. It could have been worse. He knew it. Lydia Caldwell, facing evidence of her direct involvement in the wire transfers, pled guilty to accessory charges. Years in federal prison. Her attorney released a written statement calling it a difficult time for the family. Nobody felt sorry. Caldwell Sterling Industries was dissolved. 1,200 employees lost their jobs. Most of them had nothing to do with the fraud. A victims' restitution fund was established to compensate the Defense Department and provide severance to affected workers. The unnamed senator resigned weeks after the verdict. A separate DOJ investigation was already underway. No one was surprised. A documentary crew announced a project about the case. They reached out to Nia for an interview. She declined. No statement, no explanation, just no. Sometimes justice is not poetic. It is not cinematic. It does not come with a soundtrack or a slow motion walk. Sometimes justice is a 14-count indictment, a jury deliberation, and a 22-year sentence read in a monotone by a judge who has seen it all before. And that is what makes it real. Weeks after the sentencing, Nia drove south on I-95. Windows down, late afternoon sun cutting through the trees, the kind of golden light that makes Virginia look like a painting. She had not taken a day off in months. Her supervisor had to practically order her out of the building. She pulled into a quiet neighborhood in Richmond. Small houses, chain link fences, lawns that were more dandelion than grass, kids riding bikes in the street, the smell of someone's grill going, charcoal and hickory smoke drifting through the air. Her mother's house had not changed. Same brick steps, same screen door with the loose hinge, same ceramic frog sitting next to the welcome mat that said, "Bless this mess." Gloria Brooks was on the porch. Rocking chair, glass of sweet tea, a crossword puzzle book open on her lap. She looked up when Nia's car pulled in. She did not wave. She just watched her daughter walk up the steps and sit down in the empty chair beside her. They sat in silence for a long time. The creak of the rocking chairs, the hum of cicadas, a neighbor's dog barking somewhere down the block. Gloria spoke first. "That was you, was it not?" Nia looked at her mother. Gloria's eyes were soft, knowing. She had seen the news. She had seen the blurry video of a woman in a black t-shirt walking through a ballroom with a gold badge on her hip. A mother knows her daughter's walk. Nia nodded. Gloria reached over and took her daughter's hand. Her fingers were warm, rough from years of chalk dust and dish soap. She squeezed once, firm. "I told you, you do not owe anybody your dignity." She paused. A small smile crossed her lips. "But Lord, baby, you sure made him owe you his." Nia laughed, for the first time in months, a real laugh. Not the polite kind she used at the office, not the controlled kind she used undercover. A laugh that came from somewhere deep and true. It echoed off the porch ceiling and disappeared into the evening air. They sat together until the sun went down. Sweet tea and silence and the sound of rocking chairs. That was enough. Gloria did not ask about the case. Did not ask about the trial. Did not ask what it felt like to stand in a room full of people who treated her daughter like she was less than nothing. She did not need to. She had been a black woman in America for decades. She already knew. Before Nia left that night, Gloria walked her to the car. She held her daughter's face in both hands, the way she used to when Nia was small and scared of thunderstorms. "You did something important, but do not let it harden you. You hear me? The world needs people who fight and still feel." Nia kissed her mother's palm. "I hear you, Mama." She drove back to Virginia with the windows down and the radio off, just the sound of the highway and her own breathing. Monday morning, Nia was back at the bureau. Same desk, same fluorescent lights, same coffee that tasted like it had been brewed during the last administration. She hung her jacket on the back of her chair and sat down. A new case file sat on her keyboard. Manila folder, red tab. She opened it, scanned the first page. Financial irregularities at a pharmaceutical company. Offshore accounts, whistleblower complaint. She smiled, just slightly, a small pull at the corner of her mouth. Then she picked up her pen, opened her notebook, and started reading. The cycle begins again. Quiet, competent, underestimated, unstoppable. Nia Brooks never raised her voice. Not once. Not when Harlan called her an animal. Not when he shoved a dessert tray into her chest. Not when security guards stood in her face demanding to search her bag. She never lost her composure. She never gave him the satisfaction. Her power was not volume. It was preparation, patience, and the law. Harlan Caldwell had money, influence, connections, 300 people in a ballroom who would rather look at their shoes than speak up. He had every advantage the world could offer, and none of it mattered. Because the truth does not care about your net worth. The law does not care about your guest list. And the woman you dismiss as beneath you might be the one building the case that ends everything you built. Underestimating someone because of their race is not just morally wrong. It is strategically catastrophic. This story is fiction. But that feeling, being invisible, being called less than human, that is real, too real. So tell me, what would you have done? Comments now. Like, share, subscribe. We are just getting started.